Welcome to Celeb Knockout. Today, we dive deep into the unfolding federal case against music star Sean "Diddy" Combs, a case that's shaking the foundations of the entertainment world. What you're about to hear isn't just a news story, it's a web of power, control, and the voices now fighting to be heard. Before that, if you don't know who Diddy or you're a lighthearted person, just please skip the video. If you're new to this channel, please make sure to subscribe to the channel to get full original details on each celebrity. Now let's get into it.
So what kind of thing likes virgins and gold?
P. Diddy?
Sean "Diddy" Combs is currently on trial in federal court in Manhattan, facing 5 serious criminal charges. These charges stem from multiple allegations of force, coercion, and involvement in a broader pattern of criminal conduct. First, he charged with racketeering conspiracy, which involves engaging in a pattern of illegal activity as part of an organized enterprise. In this case, prosecutors allege that Combs led or participated in a criminal enterprise that facilitated force, coercion, and exploitation. Alleged acts are that the prosecution claims the enterprise enabled trafficking, intimidation, and control over victims through manipulation, threats, and violence. Second, he charged with trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. These charges accuse Combs of compelling individuals to engage in commercial adultery acts using threats, manipulation, or deception. At least 2 women, including Cassie Ventura and Jane, have claimed that they were coerced into repeated adultery acts, sometimes involving third parties under duress. Third, he charged with transportation to engage in prostitution. Federal law prohibits knowingly transporting someone across state or national borders for the purpose of prostitution. Combs allegedly moved victims between locations, including hotels and international destinations like street bars, to facilitate or pressure them into adultery acts. Prosecutors argue that Combs used his wealth, influence, and network of employees to construct and maintain a system of control. This system allegedly involved coerced adultery acts, physical and emotional force, intimidation and retaliation against those who resisted or tried to leave. Then one of the key witnesses took the stand. Bryana Bongolan, a longtime friend and confidant of Cassie Ventura, took the stand as a prosecution witness on day 13 of the trial. She was present at multiple private locations during alleged incidents of force. Her testimony provided some of the most disturbing and specific allegations of physical violence and psychological terror inflicted by Combs. Bongolan testified that she now suffers from night terrors, often screaming in her sleep. She attributed these symptoms directly to witnessing Combs's alleged violent outbursts. The allegations made by Bongolan are: dangled over a 17th floor balcony. Bongolan told the court that Combs grabbed her and held her over a high-rise balcony railing during a terrifying encounter in 2016. This occurred at a 17th floor apartment and she feared for her life. She said Combs was enraged and shouted that he was the devil. Then in a separate event, Bongolan witnessed Combs throw a knife at Cassie inside Cassie's apartment. Cassie, in turn, picked it up and threw it back at him. Both missed. Bongolan said the confrontation was part of a pattern of violent, erratic behavior. Bongolan quoted Combs saying, "I am the devil and I can kill you." The alleged statement underscores the psychological manipulation and fear he purportedly used to control others. In court, she quoted that, "I would wake up screaming. What I saw that night and what I lived through, I still live with it every day." Bongolan's testimony not only corroborates Cassie's account of violence and force, but also shows a broader pattern of intimidation and psychological control. Her first-hand observations are being used by the prosecution to establish Combs's intent and capacity for violence, which is central to the racketeering and trafficking charges. Then the most important key witness of the case opened her mouth, which turned the most of the things upside down, because so far the witnesses are someone not close to Diddy, but this witness was the former personal assistant of Diddy. Using a pseudonym to protect her identity, Mia worked closely with Combs for years as his personal assistant. She was employed during the peak of his business operations at Revolt Films and other ventures. Her testimony, which spanned several days, provided a harrowing account of emotional, physical, and force that allegedly took place during and after her employment. Mia testified that she suffers from severe, complex PTSD, directly attributing it to her time working for Combs. She stated that, "I would have to leave the other jobs because I would be triggered by really normal situations with like an overwhelming sense of fear of being in trouble." Jurors were shown messages between Mia and Combs, and between Mia and his former chief of staff. Mia described night terrors and said Combs threatened to kill her. In WhatsApp exchanges, Combs allegedly said, "Let's go to war," and threatened to tell everything if she didn't respond. The allegations made by Mia are horror stories. Mia alleged that Combs crossed physical limits on her during multiple occasions. When pressed by the defense, she responded, "What I said is true. I have not lied to anyone at all." Then verbal force and control recounted instances where Combs berated her over minor mistakes, like counting money too slowly during a trip to St. Bart's. She said she was chased from his room in fear. Then the third allegation is manipulative relationship dynamics. Despite the force, she gave Combs a handmade scrapbook for his 45th birthday. When asked why, she said, "It was a lot more complicated on all levels. I was afraid Combs would kill me." Mia eventually left Combs's company in 2017 after legal wrangling over severance. She received $400,000 after hiring employment attorneys. Combs allegedly viewed this as a betrayal, saying she had stabbed him in the back. There are some additional witnesses and testimony have come forward to offer corroborating accounts of violence, coercion, drug use, and cover-ups. Their stories, some under subpoena, others voluntarily, paint a broader picture of a toxic and criminal ecosystem allegedly fostered by Combs and his team. Several former members of Combs's private security team were called to testify, offering first-hand insights into the inner workings of his operations. One security staffer stated that fighting and screaming were normalized inside Combs's properties. Allegedly tasked with escorting young women, some said they were expected to not ask questions. One bodyguard claimed he was instructed to erase footage from surveillance cameras after certain altercations. Individuals involved in organizing parties, travel, and logistics also testified about the role drugs played in Combs's world. Described Combs regularly using a pharmacy's worth of narcotics, often in the presence of employees and guests. One former party planner said there was a menu of women and substances at certain exclusive gatherings, including so-called freak-offs. A former Revolt executive testified under subpoena about how media footage and internal complaints were systematically buried or deleted. They described a culture of silence and NDA use where threats and payouts were used to control damaging narratives. The prosecution also brought in psychological and behavioral experts to explain how trauma survivors may stay in dangerous environments for years due to fear, shame, or dependency. Why victims may still express loyalty, gratitude, or affection toward their forcer even while experiencing mistreatment. These testimonies were used to counter defense arguments that Cassie, Mia, and others voluntarily stayed and were therefore complicit. Some witnesses were allowed to testify anonymously or behind closed doors for their safety. They included a makeup artist, a personal chef, and two former romantic partners of Combs. One claimed they were coached on how to lie during a previous legal deposition. Multiple witnesses confirmed the use of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, as standard for all Combs employees and associates. Claims that rooms were bugged and private conversations recorded, adding to the environment of fear and control. The U.S. Department of Justice has taken an unusually aggressive legal approach in charging Sean Diddy Combs, applying the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations RICO Act, a law typically used to prosecute mobsters, drug cartels, and street gangs. This signals the government's view that Combs's actions weren't isolated misconduct, but rather part of an organized criminal enterprise that used sex, drugs, money, and fear to exert control and avoid consequences. The charges against Combs under RICO: Combs faces 5 felony counts. 1 count of racketeering conspiracy. 2 counts of trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. The prosecution alleges that Combs used his business empire, including Bad Boy Records, Revolt TV, and personal assistants, as fronts for criminal acts including trafficking, witness intimidation, drug distribution, financial coercion, and NDAs to cover up force. Prosecution strategy. Building the enterprise. The federal team is meticulously building the case that Combs ran a criminal enterprise that involved recruiters like assistants and friends, enforcers, bodyguards, employees who carried out threats or destruction of evidence, victims and manipulated partners coerced into sex work, drug use, and loyalty, financial channels used to pay off victims and launder hush money. They're tying these pieces together via testimony from Cassie, Mia and Jane, subpoenaed documents and digital evidence, historical settlements and NDAs, hotel surveillance footage and text messages. Defense strategy: attack the pattern. Combs's defense team is taking a two-pronged approach. Dismantle the idea of a pattern, arguing that these are disconnected personal and professional incidents, not organized criminal acts. Challenge victim credibility, pointing to continued relationships or loyalty, e.g., Mia's scrapbook and social media posts. Delays in reporting or inconsistent timelines, alleged financial motives behind the testimony. They argue that while Combs may have had a volatile personality, he did not coerce anyone into criminal acts, nor did he run an illegal enterprise. So why the RICO strategy is high risk, high reward? Because it has a pros for prosecution, like allows them to connect seemingly unrelated incidents over years, provides access to broader forms of evidence, financial records, internal communications, elevates charges, increasing potential sentencing time. But with that said, it also has risks like RICO cases are complex and require clear, structured proof of a continuing criminal operation. Defense can argue it's a creative overreach, stretching the law to target a celebrity without sufficient cause. If found guilty under RICO, Combs could face decades in federal prison. The government could seize his assets tied to criminal conduct, homes, businesses, music rights. It would set a legal precedent for using organized crime laws in future cases involving celebrity force and trafficking networks. With multiple lawsuits, a sprawling federal investigation, and the court of public opinion already in motion, the fallout surrounding Sean Diddy Combs is far from over. The next chapter will be shaped by legal proceedings, federal strategy, and the broader reckoning in the music industry. Here's what to expect. As of mid-2025, the Department of Justice has not yet filed formal RICO charges, but all signs point to a massive, complex case being built behind the scenes. These kinds of investigations are slow, deliberate, and methodical, often taking years to prepare. What to expect? More cooperating witnesses, especially from former employees, artists, and inner circle insiders. Expanded indictments, possibly involving associates of Combs if a broader conspiracy is proven. Financial tracing. Investigators will likely follow money tied to alleged trafficking and violence. By late 2025, possible unsealing of indictments or public charges. And by 2026 to 2027, if indicted, Diddy could face a multi-year federal trial with mandatory sentencing guidelines. Convictions under RICO statutes often carry minimum sentences of 20 years or more, depending on the charges. Like the #MeToo and Epstein cases before it, the Diddy case is being propped up by journalism and public records, often ahead of official filings. Expect more leaks of video, testimony, and sealed documents. Journalists and podcasters are crowdsourcing timelines, former employees, and hidden properties. Documentary filmmakers are likely already producing multi-part exposés with streaming platforms circling. Whether Diddy is ever convicted or not, the story is already reshaping the entertainment world. Like other high-profile force cases, this one has triggered a domino effect that will reverberate through contracts, boardrooms, and recording studios. This isn't just about what happened in the past, it's about who is accountable for allowing it to go on for so long. As the story continues to evolve, one thing is clear: the silence around abuse in power circles is breaking. Here at Celeb Knockout, we'll be following every twist, every testimony, and every truth that comes to light. And I know the video might be little average, but please bear with it because it's my first video. I'll improve soon. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more fearless coverage.